Previously on Jay Speaks.
So why would you advise someone to seek out therapeutic dance versus a traditional therapist? Because in your previous example, when you were talking about a student with the clenched jaw, you mentioned that she was going to your therapeutic dance classes and she was also seeking a therapist. So do you feel as though therapeutic dance should be coupled with therapy? Or do you think that therapeutic dance is fine by itself? Do you prefer therapeutic dance over therapy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's coupled with therapy.
Okay, coupled.
So how our classes work, so like I said, we don't do a lot of talking. So what happens a lot is we actually spend a lot of time journaling. So after everyone does each practice, they sit down and kind of journal through their thoughts. Then I tell everyone, take that journal and go to therapy. Because a lot of things happen in therapy is you go to therapy, because I'm in therapy, I've been in therapy for years, love therapy, would never say to not go to therapy. But what happens in therapy is you get there, you have no idea what to talk about. A lot of times you don't know what you're feeling. Your therapist's like, what's going on? You're like, I don't know, I just don't feel good. And the therapist can't do much with that. They try, they're like, all right, anything else, right? And they're stuck because they want to help you, but they don't know how to help you, and you don't know what's going on. You don't know why your body feels bad. You don't know that your body really feels bad. You just know that you feel off. So when you go to our space in therapeutic dance, we help you recognize this is why I feel off. Because when you do movement, your body, like I said, remembers all these things, these emotions. So you can say, when I moved my shoulders, I actually felt really sad. I don't know why. So your therapist can start exploring that with you. Of why do you feel sad when you move your shoulders? What happened there? Or I had one client, we were in a big session and we were doing our body scan, and she came at the end, we have time for discussion, and she was like, when I moved my elbow, I literally saw like my relationship with my father every time I moved my elbow. I'm like, that's amazing. And you can see like how our brains connect memories. You can actually relive things and like see traumas. You can see feelings. You can see different events and images as you move your body. I had some people that are like, when I move my fingers and I connect my fingers together, I see myself holding hands with a partner, someone that I lost. And like, I can see that because my fingers still remember what that feeling is like. My fingers still remember how it feels to connect with somebody, even though my brain might have forgotten. You can see whole stories just by moving your body. You can write down on your journal, like, man, I was moving my feet and I just kept seeing myself on the sand, just making signs and symbols. People say, oh, okay, what about the beach? It makes you feel safe to do that. Or one of the big things we do is we ask people, what do they feel as they move different parts? So people are like, man, I felt really nervous moving my chest, but I felt really silly moving my knees. I was like, okay, let's think through that. Why do you think that? So your therapist, he or she, can literally take your journal, you can bring it there and say, this is how I'm feeling, and they can walk you through those feelings. But you can walk away and be like, oh, snap, like, this is why I've been stuck here. This is what this feeling is that's feeling like it can't come out of my body. And they can take you one step further. So we're like the pit stop in between. We're the body analysis that's like, hey, let's start engaging with the things that we're feeling. Let's start returning our bodies back on to feel, so that when you start to feel, you can actually start to heal.
So how I took your example is like therapeutic dance to understand how you're feeling, then express that to a therapist.
Yes.
After oh, my jaw clenched, and you're talking to your therapist, oh, this is why.
Yeah.
Then she gives you she or he gives you feedback. Then I guess you can take that back to the therapeutic dance and then really express it.
Yes.
Okay, so interesting. So you also mentioned that you don't necessarily teach dance. You don't teach movements. It sounds like the movements from your students are more so unscripted. So
Introducing Express and Release Therapeutic Dance. Redefining dance and movement.
Americans own 3 billion electronic products in 2021. That's 24 devices per household. E-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. Globally, only 20% of e-waste is being recycled. I'm Cindy U. Robinson, Executive Director of Kramden Institute. The task of recycling and reusing these items as they reach the end of their life is immense. Since 2003, Kramden has been focused on giving a second life to computers and technology that would otherwise end up in landfills or be transported to distant recycling centers, increasing the carbon footprint of this e-waste. One of Kramden's core values is sustainability, reusing, refurbishing what we can, recycling the rest, and as locally as possible. Why do we do this? Well, 20% of North Carolinians, that's 1 in 5 people in North Carolina, don't have computers at home. That's a huge impact, leaving many without the technology they need to thrive in a digital society. Through Kramden's programs, donated PCs are reused in the communities that need it the most. Whether it's students that need a laptop for school, low-income adults for telehealth, banking, e-commerce, or staying connected with distant family and friends, or community organizations sharing the wonders of STEAM education. Kramden is bridging the digital divide with devices and education and outreach.
As far as this organization itself goes, we've been here for, about 21 years. We were founded in 2003. And, our main mission, you said it earlier about our mission statement about advancing digital equity. But what that really means is we take computers, we fix them up, volunteers refurbish them, and then we get them back in the community here in North Carolina. The background is, the backbone of this program really has been providing supported desktop computers to students in grades K through 12 for the life of their that they're in school. So making sure they always have a device. Since about when I joined, 2014, 2015, we started some education programming, both for adults and for youth. And so I've been, really part of the education side of things, the programmatic side of things, and really getting that education out. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Kramden does. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more, but it's a great organization, and I tell people that I studied art, and they look at me kind of funny. For me, it's a very, consistent path. The way I approached it and my introduction to hardware and software and open source philosophies, and then finding this organization that did exactly what I'm doing, and I just always kind of had an interest in service and had the opportunity to do that.
Hello everyone. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. And for those of you who are subscribed to Jay Speaks, thank you so much and welcome back. As you know, it is my mission, it is my passion to bring to you all conversation topics that are positive, motivational, educational, and informational. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here with Lyle Stevens and to introduce you all to Kramden. Kramden is the ultimate game changer when it comes to leveling the playing field in this rapidly advancing digital world. The nonprofit strives to eliminate barriers and empowers individuals from diverse backgrounds through the power of technology by equipping underserved communities with computer equipment and offering comprehensive courses on essential digital skills. Since 2003, Kramden has been bridging the digital divide and has awarded more than 52,000 computers, has taught technology skills to more than 11,000 people, all of different age groups and backgrounds, and has recycled more than 2.4 million pounds of e-waste. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit back, relax, and most importantly, listen. And hopefully after today's episode, you'll understand for yourself the importance about Kramden and their impact, and why they are all about advancing equitable access to devices, connectivity, and technology education. Well, Lyle, it's definitely a pleasure to be here with you. I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. I've been really looking forward to this. But before we officially get started, if you don't mind, sharing to me, looking at the camera, who is Lyle Stevens? Please give a little bit of background about yourself, your relationship to Kramden, how long you've been working with the company, and also please share a few words about Kramden itself.
Lyle Stevens. I moved here to North Carolina in 2012 to finish grad school. I was actually studying studio art, so that's what brought me here. And my practice was involved in sculpture, installation, and what we might call new media. So basically I was interested in objects, but also using technology. So, at the time I was buying up old computers and old devices and really interested in making them work, extending the life of them, using them for specific art projects, using open source hardware and software, and just generally tinkering with things. So that was really part of what I was doing as an artist. And during that process, someone told me about this organization down the road in Durham that basically puts Linux-based systems on desktop computers and distributes them to kids throughout North Carolina. So I wanted to, volunteer for that, and that's sort of how I found the organization. My grad program was a 2-year program, so upon graduation, started doing some work locally, and I applied for an artist residency. So an artist residency can take many forms, but in this case it was a 6-month studio space with an exhibition at the end. And as a part of my application for it, I really wanted to do something with the community. Been kind of educating and teaching for a long time. So I wanted to teach a class on open source image editing. So I approached Kramden and came and taught a couple classes, had an art exhibition, and then the following spring rolled around and Kramden had a grant to do some computer basics classes in Chapel Hill locally, and I got hired on part-time and just sort of kept going from there. Fast forward a little bit, it's been 9 years, and I've been an educator here, been working with youth for many years. For the last couple, I've been a program manager for one of our Train the Trainer programs. We're basically trying to scale up a lot of the computer classes that we do. As far as this organization itself goes, we've been here for, about 21 years. We were founded in 2003. And, our main mission, you said it earlier, about just our mission statement about advancing digital equity. But what that really means is we take computers, we fix them up, volunteers refurbish them, and then we get them back in the community here in North Carolina. The background of this, so the backbone of this program really has been providing supported desktop computers to students in grades K through 12 for the life of that they're in school. So making sure they always have a device. Since about when I joined, 2014, 2015, we started some education programming, both for adults and for youth. And so I've been, really part of the education side of things, the programmatic side of things, and really getting that education out. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Kramden does. We'll elaborate a little bit more, but it's a great organization, and I tell people that I studied art, and they look at me kind of funny. For me, it's a very, consistent path, the way I approached it, and my introduction to hardware and software and open source philosophies, and then finding this organization that did exactly what I'm doing, and I just always kind of had an interest in service and had the opportunity to do that.
Wow, so it sounds like Kramden is the perfect company for you. I mean, it sounds like you're really enjoying it here. Now, I do want to talk about Kramden's slogan, get tech, learn tech, give tech. So how have you seen the company live out that statement since you've been working?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, when people see Kramden, it's not immediately obvious what we do. So we've integrated this series of taglines into our logo so that people know what we are, what we do. So if I can talk a little bit about these three things. Get Tech. It's been at the heart of what we do for many years. We started out providing desktop computer systems, supported desktop computer systems to kids in grades K through 12. So they get a computer and we put an open source system on it. It's very secure, very easy to use, and then it extends the life of the device, and they're able to use it till they graduate high school. That has been what we've done for many, many years. As an extension of that, we have been able to provide low-cost devices to adults that have, basically like a financial need or just can't afford like a brand new device. We want to make sure that they have access to that. So we have low-cost device programs for adults. And then we also work with nonprofits. So nonprofit organizations, schools, faith-based organizations, we're able to provide equipment for general use for their organizations. So, someone sees Kramden and says, get tech, that is sort of what that means. We want to provide access to this equipment that is given a second life. I mentioned that we started our education programming later, so around 2014, 2015. So when it comes to Learn Tech, a lot of this kind of stems back to what we would call our tech topics programs, where we just have a few different workshops that we would provide to the public for free. That's sort of how I approached the organization with my art residency. And we still do those to a certain extent, but when I joined the organization, it was to take kind of our growing computer basics program or digital literacy program and provide it in the community. We were doing it to a certain extent in our office, but going out into the community where people are was really how we were going to reach the people that we wanted to reach. And we were fortunate enough to get a grant to be able to do this and provide a device. So that was key, that they can take this class with us, but also practice on the device and then take it home afterwards. So fast forward a bit, and we have youth programs. We've got some after-school programs. We do a whole slate of summer camps on STEM and STEAM topics. And we also just want to generally provide this access and augment some of the resources or supplant them in case there aren't any resources in these topics for students. To a certain extent, the computer basics programs that we do, they are meant to reach someone with little to no skill, but there's a lot of information that anyone can get out of them, and there's a lot of workforce applicable curriculum that we teach and provide as well. So that's sort of the Learn Tech aspect of it. And then when it comes to Give Tech, we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have donations. So we live in a very fortunate area, a lot of skill here, a lot of technology. So, I don't know about you, most of us have some sort of old device in our closet sitting around. It's got sensitive data on it. We don't really know what to do with it. We don't want to throw it away. We might have a personal attachment to it. But we also know that it needs to be disposed of properly. So that's how we do what we do. We take computers that have been donated to us, and we will take them regardless of operability. So if it doesn't work, or if it's broken into pieces, or if it's 20 years old, we will still take it. That's just what we do. You can give us your tech. We get old stuff. We get new stuff. We get donations from individuals. We get donations from companies and organizations. So we take those donations, and then we're able to process them, we're able to refurbish them and distribute them back into the community. But as well as a part of Getting Tech, I want to kind of expand on that a little bit. We have a lot of high-skilled talent in the area. So we couldn't do what we do without volunteers, and a lot of the volunteers in this area have a lot of ability, a lot of skills that we can leverage. Now, that being said, we don't need you to have technical skills to volunteer here. We will teach you on site what you need to know. But the fact that we have so many people in the IT sector in this area that will come volunteer, we're able to get a lot out of that. So that's part of what they're giving with Giving Tech, is giving that expertise. And then I'll just add briefly, another thing that they can do to give Tech is to give financial support. So We get donations from individuals, we get donations from grants and organizations, and then in more recent years we are included in some of the more recent government funding that has been distributed throughout the states for a variety of purposes. Wow.
Thank you for your answer and going into such great detail. So, I mean, from your answer, you talked about initially Kramden was focused on giving computers to K through 12.
Mm-hmm.
You also talked about a program for adults for technology. I think it was cell phones, or
no. Well, it's interesting you asked that. Cell phones have been kind of an interesting development over the years that we've been working with them, but we really believe that people should have their own computer device.
Computer device.
So you know, a laptop or a desktop. Tablets and smartphones are great, and they actually, you know, give a lot of people introductions to the internet and online living. But to do real work, to really fully participate in the online economy, you need a fully functional device.
So yes. So thank you. So
absolutely.
So programs for kids, programs for adults. You talked about volunteers. You talked about going into the community, you know, and helping the community directly. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about Kramden's 2023 Impact Report and your ongoing commitment to building digital equity here in North Carolina. On your website, I saw that, you know, there are 3 main projects that fall under the 2023 Impact Report. Mm-hmm. Digital Bridges Forsyth, Connecting Minority Communities, mm-hmm. and affordable connectivity program outreach.
Yeah.
And you, I believe, in particular, you manage the Train the Trainer program within Digital Bridges Forsyth and Connecting Minority Communities. So please, you know, talk a little bit more about that in particular. You know, those 3 projects, you know, your involvement, and you know, what did you get from that? You know, who did you impact? And you know, if you care to go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so you're referencing our 2023 Impact Report, and we did highlight these 3 kind of major initiatives. But I'll sort of back up a little bit and say that the program I manage, our Train the Trainer program, is really a way to take the computer basics classes and curriculum and the whole program itself that we've designed and done here on site to really expand that reach, to be able to reach more people that can't make it to our physical office, right? So, you know, we've been doing this Train the Trainer model since 2015, where we will partner with different organizations that are maybe not in the Research Triangle area specifically, but do have these needs, and bring them here, and we will train them on our curriculum, how to take the program into their own communities, and then distribute computers. So, you know, we've been doing that, you know, kind of funding contingent over the years with different organizations, and we've developed some great partnerships. So, you know, when it comes to the first one you mentioned, Digital Bridges Forsyth, that really stemmed out of a relationship that we already had with players in Winston-Salem. So there's an organization called WinstonNet that we partnered with for years and helped provide devices for and just had a good relationship for a long time. And then the Housing Authority of Winston-Salem, or HAWS, we've been able to do our Train the Trainer program specifically with that housing authority. So a couple of the important people involved in those 2 organizations, when they started working on their own kind of digital inclusion work, you know, they approached Kramden. They knew us, we had a good relationship, and they reached out to us. Let me back up a little bit too. You know, back in 2021, after the pandemic and everything that kind of the economic turmoil that happened through all of that, the American Rescue Plan Act was passed, and that's government funding for basically COVID-19 relief and economic recovery. So that money has been distributed throughout to the states, and then from each state in turn to different counties, and then municipalities, and then different organizations. So we're seeing a lot of that funding come down in many different ways. So when it comes to Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, they were recipients of this funding, and they had this plan of how they wanted to serve a lot of their residents. So they targeted, with their plan, they wanted to serve 1,250 residents. They wanted to train them and provide devices for them. So now we've had this relationship with these organizations in Winston-Salem. They reached out to us, and through a lot of conversations, we ended up partnering or contracting with them, I should say, to provide these devices with the training. So just so happens that we're on track to reach that number, 1,250 individuals trained and given devices by the end of this month. And it's been a really exciting program, really ambitious, but has been really great the way it's worked. So, coming back to this train the trainer model that we have, this was a large encapsulated project that was a part of the train the trainer program. So, we had individuals from Forsyth County come to us, people that are interested in doing this work and giving back to their community, and we train them. They go back, and then roughly every month or so, we bring computers to them. We work with the instructors very regularly, and we're able to provide both a computer basics program, like just essentials, like a foundation, as well as a workforce readiness program. So that's kind of how Digital Bridges Forsyth has worked, and they've been a great partner. And we're just a small section of the larger Digital Bridges Forsyth project. When it comes to connecting minority communities, I should say, that was a separate grant through NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Agency. Yeah, right. So, at any rate, different government funding mechanism, but in this case, this was for institutions. So for historically black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and other minority-serving institutions. So in North Carolina alone, I believe there were 9 grants awarded, one of which was here in Durham for North Carolina Central University, or NCCU. So we are one of many partners that are sub-grantees as a part of their receipt of the CMC grant, the Connecting Minority Communities grant. So in that case, we teach our classes here on site. We do them in our office. Not everyone can get here, and whenever possible, we will send our staff into communities or to different organizations to teach our classes. Well, with this opportunity with NCCU, we were able to take our kind of local model and then scale it with a train the trainer model. So we were able to train instructors that could basically do what we're doing, but locally. So this was exciting for us to be able to kind of scale up and meet some of the computer instruction demand here locally through this project. And throughout the process of all this, the actual program is called DELP, or the Digital Equity Leadership Program, that's managed by NCCU. So we are a part of that. We are currently finishing up our final class there, and our initial target was 200 individuals to serve, and we're on track to surpass that quite a bit. So, yeah, it's been exciting.
Milestones.
Absolutely, it's been it's been exciting to take all this hard work that we've been doing and then be able to scale it up when the demand comes to us, when it's time to step up and do the work. Yeah, it's been exciting. So
you're seeing the community really accepting Kramden.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have a reputation. We've been here for a while. The pandemic kind of shifted things around. We had a lot of relationships with schools. One of the great things that came out of the pandemic, a couple things was, understanding that students need computers. So there was an effort to make sure that every student had a Chromebook, which was not the case before. So all computers, or all the kids in North Carolina schools, they do have a device. That being said, they have to turn it in during summer breaks or holiday breaks, and they have no device. And we can provide that that computer for them in the meantime. But with with that change, we lost a lot of the relationships with a lot of the principals and counselors at different schools that we worked with. So we've had to sort of shift the way we do things and reestablish a lot of relationships. But to your point, we do have a reputation here in North Carolina for doing this work and for doing it well. And I want to just kind of give a shout out to North Carolina itself. Like the state is a leader in digital equity, and they are really focused on the problem, and there's a lot of people working in this space. So it's exciting to be part of this organization as well as be in a state that supports this kind of work.
Awesome. And, you know, to be able to provide so many computers to so many kids and so many individuals, I want to, you know, talk about the refurbishing process in order to do that. Like you said in your introduction, you take a lot of donations.
Yeah.
Old dilapidated devices, I guess you refurbish them. So like, what is the process of, you know, that you and your team go through to take, I guess, process and refurbish these technology donations so that you can then reuse them for your programs?
Yeah. So, well, first thing is a device comes in the door. Now, let me back up and say we really only want computer devices. We're not necessarily taking VCRs or printers and scanners or televisions. You know, we want it to be computer related. So, you know, for anyone that wants to donate to us. But as a computer or device comes in the door, you know, first off, we have to process it. So our staff will process it. We will first off determine if there's anything data bearing on it. If there's anything data bearing on it, for instance, if it's a computer, like a desktop or a laptop, we're going to remove the hard drive, or we're going to take it to a locked cage for data destruction, and we're going to perform an industry accepted wipe of that information. If it's a tablet or phone, you know, we will ask the client, or the donor, I should say, to reset it if possible. If for some reason they can, or they've lost the password, or they're bringing it for someone else, it still has data on it. We can't get into it. We will, you know, push that over for destruction. So we do take data destruction very seriously. Kind of pains me sometimes to see a nice device that's like locked down and you can't reset, but you know, it needs to be destroyed. But again, people's information is very important. So that's sort of the first step, is we want to take care of that data. Secondly, we want to figure out where the device is going to go. You know, if it's inoperable, it has components. It has RAM, it has which is memory. We have processors or CPUs. There's hard drives. There's a lot of other components that can be used, extracted, and maybe used in other devices. So that's sort of one side of it. We also might determine kind of what level it is. So, for instance, if it has a certain processor capability, we may shunt it over to our programs for students or for adults. If it's too old to be useful, it may still hold value on the refurbishing market ecosystem. So we may resell that through a number of different sort of refurbishing systems to be able to get those devices and again, extend the life of them, keeping out of the waste stream as long as possible. And then occasionally we get some much nicer equipment that you know, we can turn around and sell, and that the funds that we get from that go back to support our programs. And a lot of times those are devices that, you know, would just kind of be an outlier. Maybe not, we don't have enough of them to award to, like, you know, 20 or 30 people, but we can go ahead and sell it and be able to take some of that revenue and use it for our purposes. And also, I mean, that's still extending the life of these devices and getting them back into the community.
Oh, you're done? I didn't.
No. I was going to say, so that's sort of the processing, you know, determining where the streams go. Okay, step one, more or less. A long step, right? But the next step is what we've been doing for a long time, is refurbishing the computers. So we have been using volunteers for many, many years. As we've grown and professionalized, we've been able to hire more staff and more people with higher skills, but we still depend greatly on our volunteers. So, you know, if you're to come in to volunteer, let's say you came in to volunteer one day, you would come in and we would tell you what we need done that day. Maybe it's speccing computers. Maybe it's installing an operating system. Maybe it's taking a desktop through the entire process. So for the most part, a device, let's say it's been moved over to a specific program. Let's say the student program. It's a desktop computer. It's destined for kids. A volunteer is going to come in. We have all our processes documented. We give kind of a basic training, but also have staff or you know, experienced volunteers called super geeks that are there to help supervise and answer questions. but a volunteer would, they would go through, they would test the hardware, make sure everything works, install hardware. If it needs a certain amount of RAM or needs a new hard drive or something, make sure it's in there. Make sure the interior is clean and blown out if it's got dust or anything like that. Run through some of those spec tests. After that, we will start installing an operating system. So I mentioned open source earlier. We have an open source operating system for students. It just really extends the life of these devices. But we also put Windows on devices. Usually those are going to be more for the adult-facing population. So either way, we're installing the operating system and any sort of software we might need. After that, we are doing our final tests, basically our quality assurance checks. And then after that, physically cleaning them, making sure that they look as new and nice as possible for the new home they're going to go into. So that's kind of what happens to a device when it comes in. It comes in, we process it, we refurbish it, and then it goes to either a student, an individual, or an organization in need.
So how long, roughly, in days, does each phase take? If it's not a straight answer, it's okay.
I would say it depends, but yeah, I mean, let's say a 4-hour volunteer shift. You know, you as an individual could maybe, you know, take 3 or 4 desktop computers all the way through the process. Maybe more, maybe less. I don't have those figures right in front of me, but it varies. So yeah, I think if we work with an organization, so for instance, we may work with a company that they'll work with us to bring their volunteers in for sort of their charitable donation. At the end of their volunteer shift, we might say, hey, you helped us refurbish this many desktops or this many laptops or something like that. So it depends.
Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
All right, well, so you asked about, you know, what is the path the device takes when it comes to the door, when we refurbish it, everything we need to do. So, you know, the first step is, you know, as a device is coming through the door, you know, our staff is going to process it in this area. You know, we're looking for a few different things. So this is a desktop computer. You know, one thing we're looking at is, you know, cosmetics. Is it actually functional or is it in pieces? You know, we also might do some light specking. So for instance, if you're looking right here at this sticker, this tells us what the processor is and what the generation is. So that gives us a lot of information just looking at that alone. So that's sort of the process. You know, we bring the devices in. We're able to do some kind of surface level processing, you know, and as well as we might open them up. This one has a graphics card in it. So, you know, making that decision of whether or not to keep it in the device or to extract it and sell it separately or use it in another computer or anything like that. If it's like too old, you know, we will kind of direct it to scrap. So that's what will happen with that. But the first thing we'll do is we will actually physically open up the computer and remove the hard drive. Let me see if I can do this without any specialized tools. There's probably like a hidden latch here somewhere to slide it out. But at any rate, we'll take the hard drive right out of here, and we can take it to the to be wiped for the data destruction. So if you'll follow me, I'll show you our cage. This is a locked, badged area where all of our sensitive donation data comes in, so that everything can be wiped effectively. So even I'm not allowed in here. But this is our caged area. And back here we have like an entire bank of machines dedicated to wiping hard drives. So we'll take the physical hard drives out and then we just run software to you know, run an industry standard wiping process. Over here you have laptops. We might have some tablets. A lot of these are laptops that we just haven't had a chance to process yet, so they stay back here until we get a chance to destroy that data. If you look on that back wall, you can actually see stacks and stacks of hard drives. We've got you know, the old spinning mechanical hard drives that would go in larger devices, as well as the smaller laptop-sized hard drives and solid-state drives. So hard drives that don't have moving components in them. And then more and more we're seeing the smaller M.2. It's like a tiny little solid-state hard drive, almost like a USB stick or something. But that's kind of like where things are going with these. But yeah, we have a lot of hard drives back there, all this secure data. So we want to make sure that stuff is destroyed before we do anything else with it. Hard drive comes out, we can actually do a lot of work on the computers without a hard drive in them. We can check their specs, we can do some hardware tests and things like that. So, that's sort of the first step when a device comes in, is we figure out where it goes, right? So if it's got data, it goes in here regardless of whether we can use it or not. If the hard drive doesn't boot for some reason, it goes in one of these locked bins and it gets shredded. But ideally we'll boot it, wipe it, and reuse it. Anything that is broken or has different levels of functionality we'll scrap. So this is like a bin of miscellaneous scrap. These are like kind of old hard graphics cards. Just a variety of different things. These are like hard drive caddies, keyboards that we've determined we don't need for some reason, cables, things like that. So we're able to, basically load this on the dock to a truck with our electronics recyclers, and we get some small revenue, per pound for the different types of material that we will recycle. Other things, devices come in. So yeah, and if there's like I said, if there's anything that's kind of like one-off, or maybe it's broken. Let's say it's broken, but it still like functions. Let's say it's a laptop, but the screen doesn't work. It still holds value on the refurbishing market. So we'll direct over here. We have a kind of an eBay team that will, they're looking at the market. They are packaging things, and there's always, someone's going to purchase devices that maybe we're not going to refurbish for our programs, but someone else can refurbish them or use the components. Again, just extending the life of these devices for a little bit longer. As a part of that process, and we also get a lot of other materials, a lot of other odds and ends. We get speakers, mice, keyboards, things like that. Here we have just like arrays of laptop power adapters. So we sort them by manufacturer, we sort them by amperage, and also the type of connector, right? So we we try to keep a moving inventory. Look at all these Apple chargers over there.
Oh wow!
These USB-C devices, we had some people from Durham public schools requesting them because like they tagged all their Chromebooks, but they didn't tag all their adapters. So the kids are losing all the adapters, and they're like, "Can we buy some from you?" We're like, we can't really afford these to give these out, but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we used to get donations, but we're also in a position to be able to source some materials. So we're not just handing out random webcams. We will purchase them from a specific supplier, make sure they work for our purposes. Same thing with Wi-Fi adapters. They're basically like little USB antennas for connecting to Wi-Fi, because not all the desktops have that Wi-Fi functionality built into them.
Absolutely.
Laptops, of course, they do, but
wow.
yeah, like these brand new mice. But we also clean mice that are donated, and volunteers do that too. Okay, so yeah, I'm just kind of keep thinking about things. So that's the process through this. The device comes in, we've wiped it, we put everything over there, we push in the different directions. So, as far as like where it's going to go, we need to determine, if it's a desktop in good working order, we're going to send that to. It's going to be part of our programs for either adults or students getting a desktop computer. So it'll get an open source system on it, or it'll get Windows on it. If it's a laptop, it's probably going to go to an adult-facing program, assuming it meets certain cosmetics standards. It looks good, and of course we test it and it works. So that's kind of the initial processing that the staff will do. Just figure out which stream it goes into, which direction it goes into. Once we've done that, the fun part is when volunteers come in, they actually come in and they do the refurbishing. So they'll come in, we'll do an introduction, talk about what Kramden does, we'll talk about the project of the day. Hey, today we're going to be refurbishing desktop computers for kids. Today we're going to be testing out the specs on all these laptops to determine which stream we're going to direct them into, right? So we have a variety of processes outlined, but this is a good example here. This is our process, just kind of a version of how we might go through our laptop testing and speccing. Testing things like checking to make sure it turns on, checking the basic system, seeing if it's, if there's a basic system on there called the BIOS. Sometimes those are locked by different companies. So, you know, different things like that. Just, can we use this thing and where's it going to go, right? So we have our processes outlined, but also we have people on site here to answer questions. Every device is going to get some form of a tracking sheet on it, which is also really cool. Let me put this over here in the light here. So, you know, if you come over here to a tracking sheet, you know, we're going to record things like the computer model. We have our asset recording number. It's called a K number, right? We're going to record things like the actual CPU and the generation. So like an i5 7th generation or an i9 4th gen or something like that. How much RAM we're actually installing, and then what's the size of the hard drive. So this is just kind of basic stuff that doesn't require a lot of specialized software to be able to get this information and record that on these computers. And then depending on whether it's a laptop or a desktop, you know, we might be testing for things like screen or webcam or touchpad, or on a desktop, maybe we're just testing for the USB ports, making sure they're all functional, because everything else is going to be a separate peripheral. Any other notes that stand out we'll put here. Like I said, we usually put Windows or Ubuntu on these. We want to hold people accountable, not really, but we do want, you know, kind of get an idea of who may have refurbished these. So just, you know, some I did it on this date. Pop that in. Our process goes through this, and then yeah, it's just a lot of great information that we can have on the computer. And you know, if you rewind a few years, you know, someone would come in, they'd do the triage portion, testing all the specs, and they'd have to leave for the day. Someone else could pick up that computer, pick up right where they left off, and do the OS load portion or the cleaning portion. So really, you know, specific, robust program. These stations here are all for volunteers. So when they come in, you know, we've got everything they need here. We've got keyboards, mice, Ethernet cords, monitors to plug into, to test out, you know, display options, everything they need here, and it's just a lot of fun. We might do some cleaning over here. We have a bunch of cleaning materials. Let's see, what else might we do? Yeah, a lot of it's testing. A lot of it's like deployment. We installing the operating system. So we've got it set up where we can deploy from our local server, meaning that we can plug the devices in and then load Windows or Ubuntu from them remotely without having a separate USB media to do that. Yeah, so they'll work back over here. We do have staff and technicians are working over in similar stations that are a little bit more crowded and messy right over there, but this is a fun time. You know, you come in, I'll come back here for any reason to find a coworker or ask them a question or something, and you could have like a slate of like people from Google or you know, we've got a team that comes from Epic Games every month, volunteers. Wow. NetApp, Fidelity, a lot of different organizations, you know, they have charitable volunteer hours to donate. So, you know, they bring their employees here and they learn a little bit, they have fun, you know, they don't need a lot of skills. Sometimes they have too many skills, you know. You know, you get an engineer in here that comes in here and he's telling us, you know, like, you don't really need to re-up your Ethernet cables that way. You're gonna find a short in it. We're like, we have bins and bins of Ethernet cables. It's okay, we'll throw them out if we need to. But you know, it's just a funny example of like people trying to improve our processes, and it can be helpful, and sometimes it can be not so helpful. Cut all that out. You don't want to. Yeah. So, like for instance, these computers, they are in various states of, you know, complexity. But so this one has like the processor recorded, how much RAM is installed, the hard drive, and then we've affixed the K sticker, the asset tag on it. And someone should be able to pick up right here wherever this person left off. So they've already done this portion, so now they can just come and do the final test and cleaning. This stuff, these are small form factor desktops, so none of this stuff really applies, but they would apply for a laptop.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, inventory of HDMI cables, DVI cables, power strips. You know, we also do an inventory audit at the end of every year. So, like, you know, these are accounts that we have. We try to keep a good accounting of every device that's in here, and peripherals and things like that. I lost my sheet of paper, but I think that was it. The device comes in the building. We destroy the data. We direct it to different streams, and then volunteers come in here and refurbish in this area. And the last step is it just goes out the door, and that's, maybe you get a little shot of those carts out front, but that's the final, step before someone walks in the door. I never really mentioned this on the interview too, but one of the things that just to relate to you guys is we do support the devices. We have a 90-day warranty on all the devices they get from us. But for the kids, it's till they graduate high school. So if their computer slows down or breaks or anything, we will replace it, fix it, or whatever we need to do. Make sure they have something working.
That's awesome. Which
is huge, and it's a lot to provide, but putting a device in someone's hand and saying, all right, good luck, helps a little bit, but not a lot.
It's not the Kramden way.
It's not the Kramden way. This is not the way. Yeah.
Awesome. So why do you believe, on the topic of refurbishing, like why is environmental sustainability important? Why should it be important? Like what are the cons or the problems of an old dilapidated device, a computer, a cell phone, to be in a landfill for too long? Like how does that affect the earth or the world if you
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say, people either care or they don't. And a lot of that is based on their circumstances, right? If you have bigger worries, getting food on the table or just making a living, you're probably not going to be as concerned as where your devices go. But if we have the time to think about it and we have the luxury to be able to do that, it's important for us to make sure they're not going in the wrong direction, right? So, this is part of what brought me here to Kramden was, in my art practice, I was just really interested in making things work as long as possible, For me, just to kind of get on my own sort of philosophical side of things, like I believe that obsolescence is not an inherent nature of technology. It's really kind of an agreed upon state that we've all kind of, fallen for. These devices still hold a lot of value and a lot of functionality. The example I like to give is if you think about the Voyager probes from the late 70s that were sent out. They're now in interstellar space, right? So 1977, we launched 2 of these probes, and they are still sending back useful scientific data. Wow. And we don't have another option. It's not like we can update their software or upgrade the hardware. It is doing what it needs to do. So, for me, I think using the device as long as possible, as long as it's useful, or if you can use find an alternative use for it, that's important. And the reason why is because, one, we're directing it from the waste stream. So let's say if it doesn't go to a responsible recycling program, right, it ends up in the landfill, as per your example, eventually, it's going to leach out some of these toxic heavy metals, and that's going to go into our environment. It's going to go into our groundwater. So that's in many ways a ticking time bomb, but it is something that, the more that we recycle, the more we dispose of this stuff properly, the less of an issue that will be. So, there's that side of it. As well, additionally, it's reducing our carbon footprint. So, when it comes to manufacturing new technology, transporting the new technology, miniaturizing things, all the industrial processes that go into it, that is going to create a lot of energy, a lot of carbon, just that entire process. So, if we can extend the life of these a little bit longer, we're reducing that. Providing a desktop or a laptop to someone instead of like manufacturing a new one is going to, provide that sort of green side of things. That being said, there's a balance to it. Newer devices are more efficient. They are more energy efficient. They're using less materials. So, we have to sort of be cognizant of that as well. But, yeah, I think it's just, there's a lot of use we can get out of these devices. And that's one of the things that I love about this organization is, it's, for one, it's good to just make sure your e-waste is not going into the landfill. Like, at least it's being recycled. If possible, take to an organization like us where we can reuse it first. Anything we can't reuse, we will responsibly recycle, but that reuse element is very important.
So 2.4 million. Kramden recycled 2.4 million pounds of e-waste. is that number jarring to you? Is that something that you expected? Is that something that you're surprised about? Is that a small number in the industry that you're in, or is that a big number?
You know, when we get into numbers in the millions, you know, it just becomes this abstract thought, right? I have no idea what 2.4 million pounds of e-waste looks like, right?
Yes.
I do want to be clear, though, like we're not directly recycling it. We partner with and contract with electronics recyclers.
Okay.
So we were able to, rewind a few years, we were able to like sort out different parts of computers and be able to like recycle a whole bin of like motherboards or a whole bin of like copper and aluminum heat sinks or something like that. So we, it is very important for us, and we have been doing that for a long time.
Since 2003.
Since 2003, if anything, diverting it from landfills. We do not want that stuff to go into the general waste stream.
Wow. Well, I can speak on behalf of North Carolina. I bet that we are all appreciative of your efforts since 2003. Thank you. Now, I do want to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about technology a little bit more broadly. Why do you believe that it's important for all of us to stay updated with technology and how quickly it's advancing? We have AI, NVIDIA. I mean, people think that our jobs are going to be taken over by robots one day.
Right.
Why is it important for us to just be looking at these advancements under a microscope and making sure that we're staying on board?
It's a tough question to answer because, if I were to speak for our organization, we're not as concerned with making sure people are up to speed on every bit of technology and innovation. Our bigger concern is making sure that people just have the skills to live a daily life, right? If you think about stuff that you and I probably do naturally, we probably shop online. We do our banking online, schedule appointments, apply for jobs, all these things that we can do relatively easily as digital natives. That's not as easy for many people that didn't have the access to this technology or didn't have the right support. So it's just that we're more concerned with that just digital life, like being able to live your life using these tools. So to a certain extent, yeah, you need to be aware of what are the most common, most recent technologies, the way things are going, but we also don't want to overwhelm people, right? So, I think AI is a great example. It's a rather new technology. Everyone's hearing about it. We're actually trying to confront that with our Tech Topics series, our Summer of AI. So we've got about 5 workshops that we've been doing this summer that is really trying to tackle this new topic that's still in development every day, if you will. We do want people to be up to date on certain trends. We do want them to know if anything is scams and malware, bad actors. We need to make sure, to the best of our ability, that people are prepared for what the bad guys are doing out there. So if there's any new technology that we want people to be more concerned about is like, what are the bad guys doing so that you are less of a target, right? So yeah, AI is a good example of a technology you should be aware of. Streaming, for instance. A lot of people have old media. If they want to have entertainment, that's something that we can make people aware of. But I would say, for me personally, I think one of the bigger issues that people need to be aware of is just a general media literacy. There's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of information being produced, and not all of it is truthful. In fact, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of bad actors, and if you're not used to consuming this technology or this media consistently, you may not be able to tell the difference between a legitimate website or news organization or what have you from something that just has a nice coat of paint on it, right? And that's how people fall for scams. That's how people, get their identity stolen. That's how people end up going and working for jobs that have nothing to offer to them, like just kind of predatory employers. So, if there's sort of the next step that we'd like to tackle is that media literacy portion, but it is a very big problem, and it's always going to be shifting. So one of the terms that we kind of developed in the digital inclusion and digital equity sphere in recent years is this idea of digital resiliency. So that's really what we want to promote, is we want to provide people the basic skills to have a daily life with computers, to use these digital tools. But we don't want them to just rest on that information. We want them to be empowered to be able to adapt and learn and be flexible and kind of be their own teacher as they move forward. So that would be another focus that we're working towards, is that digital resilience portion.
So, and you said this in the beginning of your answer, or at least you alluded to it, but you know, technology advancements can be overwhelming to all of us, even me. Like, I
Absolutely.
am not tech savvy at all. Just being honest, I'm not tech savvy at all. But I do believe that it's particularly intimidating to senior adults, people who are older. And you said in your answer, you know, you work with a variety of different adults, I'm sure of different ages. What do you believe, or why do you believe senior adults struggle with technology?
You know, there's going to be a variety of factors at play here. Just a few that come to mind are, you know, one is like lack of exposure. And I don't mean that like recent exposure, I just mean the course of their life, right? You know, someone who's, you know, in their 60s or 70s, you know, we've seen some crazy developments in the technology in the last 10 years alone, 20 years. So, you know, if you were in the workforce and you didn't really need a computer for your job, it was easy to, and you couldn't afford one, you know, because they weren't as ubiquitous as they are now, you probably avoided them, you know. We blink and all of a sudden everything's online, and you need those skills for day-to-day life, as I said. So, you know, I think it's that kind of exposure, or part of it's kind of a lack of interest. And I think when I say interest, it's that not realizing how important this technology was going to be when it was kind of newer. Now that it's embedded in all of our lives, you know, there's no way around it. We have to get on board with this. So, you know, we don't really have, I mean, I say we, nationally, as a society, you know, we don't have a unified approach to how to teach people computers, basically, you know. We don't have a good system for upskilling people that maybe need to be retrained. So we're talking people like, you know, in the later stages of the workforce, people, you know, senior citizens, people that have retired, they still need to like go to their doctor. They still need to navigate, you know, government systems and healthcare and things like that. We're getting closer to what we should be teaching people to make sure they can participate in the, you know, digital economy. But it's really organizations like us that have been doing this work for years that are situated to do this. I also want to give a shout out to the library systems. Like they have been the front line for helping people with technology long before it became fashionable, right? So, you know, there's just a lot of barriers there. I think another barrier, you know, part of this too, I think, is shame. You know, people like they see everyone using computers and devices around them, and they don't get them, and they don't know who to ask, and they're afraid to ask because they don't want to feel, you know, stupid or uninformed. So they're embarrassed and maybe don't ask for help as much, or they don't know where to go. We don't have some good support programs for this kind of these skills for, you know, older individuals, or support groups, or places for people to practice. So I think a lot of those factors are at play when it comes to that reticence to really, you know, use these tools, and just being afraid of scams and malware and identity theft. I mean, those are very real threats, and you know, if you don't know much about them and you think the safest thing to do is just stay off the internet, that makes a lot of sense as well.
So you talked about, you know, being afraid of scammers, a disconnect in the age, you know, time periods, being born in times where technology wasn't apparent. You talked about lack of interest. So do you feel as though your senior audience, when it comes to like teaching them technology, is it difficult? Is it, because you said lack of interest,
Yeah.
like,
you know, I don't want to mischaracterize that.
are you pulling teeth?
No, because we're serving people that need the help. Like they come to us,
So
they
they
want
come
to learn.
Do they
I
burn
think
out quickly?
what's building to this is like maybe I'll relate sort of personally. I just think about my own family and how I really wanted to have a computer in our home, and I of course I'm a kid. I want to play games and stuff, but it was also the internet is coming online, and my mother didn't really see the writing on the wall. Didn't realize this was something that we need to invest in, and something that we need to use. So it was that resistance to the financial commitment to it, as well as just like an interest in it and learning it, and then all of a sudden, like I said, everyone's using these devices now, and maybe she doesn't have the skills that she could have had she adopted it a little bit earlier. So that's kind of what I mean by lack of interest. More like maybe not necessarily seeing the trends and where things were going, but then again, a lot of it's like financial barriers, or just can I live my life without these devices, right? I know sometimes I wish I could, but we're not putting that the cat's out of the bag, right? Or
Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is Latanya Gunter.
My name is Melissa Jones.
I am a computer technology ambassador.
I've been working with Kramden for the past year, instructing our seniors 55 and older.
Digital inclusion is very important in the community that we work for, the community that we serve. We have a lot of elderly.
The community actually enjoys the interaction and learning.
I think we're assisting participants to be more self-sufficient.
Oh, I know how to do this. I don't need my grandchild or, nephew.
As the world changes, so do they need to change and try to evolve a little bit more. It's challenging, but I enjoy that challenge. I welcome that challenge.
My name is Gloria Whitehead. I sit on the board for the Mayor Association for Disabled People. In the 80s, I was the only one that had to use a computer. So when I graduated, I told myself, I ain't never touching a computer ever again. Now everybody is using computers, so now I'm having to reiterate myself into this computer thing. The class that I've been taking at Kramden allows me to keep up, and you can come in every Wednesday and you go as slow as you want or as fast as you want, and you can get it. But what Kramden has done is has alleviated that fear that I have touching that laptop.
Funny, our conversation right now is making me reminisce about college a little bit. When I was in college, I was the community service chair of an organization called AICHE, AICHE, American Institute of Chemical Engineers. And one of my projects that I carried out as the leader is we would go to a retirement home and we would help the elderly understand and use their electronic devices. So we would have a Samsung team, we would have an Apple team, a Google team, so on and so forth. So my question to you, what are some tips that you can share for someone who might live with an older loved one, or desires to communicate with a senior adult or a senior friend outside of the home? What are some tips that you can share as to, how to teach a senior adult or a senior person how to use the technology so that they or two people can communicate with each other?
Yeah. Well, part of my answer would be just avoid it completely if it's your family.
Avoid it completely.
Yeah. And I say that jokingly, but we really do see this. And we're talking about that shame factor, right? And that, people, they need help. And who are they going to turn to first? They're going to turn to their neighbors, their friends, or their family. And a lot of times their children or grandchildren. And there may be some, I'm not saying in all families, but right, we all have like relationships with our relatives that may not be the most conducive to education, right? When you're trying to teach someone a new skill. So that I would say, be aware of that, if anything. Just be aware that, this is hard for your friends and family that don't have these skills. So try not to go into that with, why don't you understand this? Like, I don't understand why you don't get it.
So patience.
Right, patience is huge. The other thing I would say is practice. Like they need to be able to do it themselves and to do it regularly, right? So, not taking over the mouse for them, but letting them do it themselves. And that does, again, require that patience. And then I think relating it to their everyday life, right? Like, what are their interests? Do you want to learn something new? Send them over to YouTube, right? Are you spending, half your day like going to the bank and doing some shopping? Well, maybe we can show you online banking and how to order a few things online, save you a trip. So those would be some of the tips that I would recommend. And then just going to come back to, is it hard to teach seniors and elderly people these skills? Yes. However, we have been able to work with this population for a long time and really realize, determine what works and what doesn't. And we've seen people at all different skill levels, people that are advanced, people that have never held a mouse before. And we want to make sure that we're meeting everyone where they're at as we're doing this work. And that's kind of the challenge. You sort of think about it. We see this all the time where, someone wants to take a bunch of high school kids or college kids and have them show up, a bunch of senior citizens how to use their smartphones. And it seems like a great idea, in the abstract sense, but if there's not a shared language there, if there's not a shared points of reference, it's just going to go over their head, right? So it's tricky teaching this kind of material to people because you have to understand that not everyone has the same vocabulary. They don't have the same associations with the kind of devices and technology that they're using. And it can be overwhelming if you're trying to, show someone how to use TikTok and how to record things and share them, and you're referencing all these other things that are, at play when someone just need to set up an email address, right? So to kind of answer your question, patience, relate it to what they already do, and if possible, use your skills as a digital native or someone that can find this information to see if there are programs around you that would benefit your family or loved ones.
So what are some frequently asked questions that you get from senior adults directly concerning, any help or assistance that they need for their electronic devices? Is there like a popular question or a popular request that you receive regularly? Setting up an alarm or?
I would say in a general sense, help with smartphones, help with their phones.
In what respect?
I need to learn my phone. How do I use my phone? They know it can do a lot, but they may not necessarily know how to navigate it as well. And that's a challenge for us too, and I'll tell you why. It's because everyone has a different type of phone. Different manufacturers, buying them from a different provider that may have different software, different layouts. Your iPhone 6 versus your iPhone 9, everything's different. So everyone has their own unique device, and that's hard to answer their questions, in a classroom setting when you get 10 or 15 people and everyone has 10 or 15 different devices, that can be really tricky. But to answer your question, that is a common request. How do I use my smartphone? We try to flip that around and say, let's show you how to do all this stuff on your smartphone with your computer. We'll teach you the basics here. We'll get you an actual device that you can do some work on, and we'll teach you those skills. So that's kind of a broad sense of what people ask about. I mean, a few different things, like maybe someone needs to send an email attachment, they need to share something, they need to open something or edit something. They need to find a file they downloaded. That's a big one, not knowing where your files go or how your files are stored or structured on your device. Back to the idea of smartphones, it's been interesting in my line of work how they have helped and also hindered what we're trying to do, because if you're on a computer and you want to go take advantage of an online service, you go to a website, right? But if you're on your smartphone, that's an app. It's its own encapsulated little piece of software. So that disconnect of if I want to go to the Facebook app versus the Facebook website, that is a big leap for many people that maybe didn't grow up with this kind of stuff. So I think you know, as a part of that, it's just that confusion about like what's on the computer versus what's online or what's in the cloud. You know, we run into that a lot. And that's not even really a specific question. It's more like we determine that there's confusion about that through the course of our interactions with them. And the last thing I'll add too, and this is the hardest thing that we're always going to deal with, is passwords. No one remembers their passwords. We all struggle with it. We have some tips for like creating good, unique passwords that you can remember, but it is the biggest problem we have all the time. And if someone needs to send someone needs to take advantage of a service, or they need to send something, usually we have to stop, like, okay, do you remember your password? And then that kind of, puts a big stop on everything we're doing.
So besides the passwords, basically what you're saying is senior adults, they don't know what they don't know. So they want to be able to maximize their devices to their full capacity, but they need to know how to do that. So you give them an expensive iPhone or expensive computer, they know that it can do a lot, but they don't know how to access the avenues to make the computer do what all that it can do.
And I would say that's part of how we approach our education is we want to let them know, hey, this can do a lot. You don't need to know how to do everything on it, right? Or like if I want to save a file that I'm working on, there's like 5 different ways to save a file. Like we try to teach them one, but also we want to respond to the needs of the person, right? So if this is someone who's retired, we may not necessarily need to teach them a lot of word processing and file management, right? They're more interested in like communicating with their loved ones, or maybe setting up a doctor's appointment. Whereas someone who's back in the job market, they may need a little more help working on their resume, sprucing it up, being familiarized with LinkedIn or other services. So, there's not a one-size-fits-all. In doing this work, you need to be sensitive to what people need and not try to like show them everything, because, we're talking about people that can be overwhelmed by the technology. The last thing you want to do is overwhelm them more, right? So again, it's a balancing act, and our program is kind of curriculum based, so we will take them through a program. A lot of other organizations and players across the country, they are able to do like one-on-one help or on-demand help. We're able to do that to a certain extent as well. Mechanisms to do some of that one-on-one and on-demand help to be more tailored to the individual.
So I want to pivot a little bit. So we talked about senior adults. So I want to pivot a little bit to, kids, the younger individuals. So how do you influence youth to get excited about technology? I noticed that on your website under Learn Tech, there was a bunch of sub-tabs. Do you care to talk a little bit about those opportunities and what you know about it?
So we're kind of talking about two different things, or there's kind of a two-part question, because let's talk about youth for a moment.
Yeah, please.
There's not a whole lot you need to do to get them excited about the technology, because they're already consuming it.
So
right?
you don't have youth that are kind of, I guess in today's day and age, all youth.
They're excited about using the technology and going maybe in a career or taking command of the tools. And that's going to be tough. You really have to get them interested and find out what they're interested in. But the short answer to that is money. If you go into an IT field, there's employment there. You can make some money going in this direction. So, I've worked primarily with middle school students for the years that I've been here, and that excites them. They all want to have a little cash in their pocket, right? But then how do you do that practically? So make something. I told you that when I approached this organization during my art residency, I wanted to teach them image editing, right? So creativity, making art, right? Making films, or producing content on YouTube or other streamings, other services like that. Making a video game, right? Everyone plays, well, not everyone, but a lot of people play video games, but going through the process of actually making one requires like mathematical, like, coding principles and algorithmic thinking. There's design elements, there's sound elements, there's engineering that's involved. So, being able to provide access to that and have someone have like a working piece of code or a game or something like that can really open up some eyes. It's that exposure, I think, too, is important. So that's really what it is. It's not as much as we want to push kids into a tech field. We just want to show them what's involved in getting there. And then, from there, it's up to them to decide like if this is something that aligns with their interests or their abilities or not. So that's kind of how we get people excited about it, is just show them what all the options are, right? But as far as like the subtabs on our Learn Tech page, we have a variety of programs. A lot of this adult-facing curriculum is really where a lot of our focus is. The youth programs are a little more targeted. We may approach a specific school and bring a program to them, or we may have these workshops, this tech topic series that we do that's kind of open to the general public and typically free, that we have periodically. But then our computer basics is going to be on there. So this is our on-site classes where people learn the fundamentals and get a computer at the end of it. So that's how they go to sign up. That's where they go to sign up for the interest list. We have sort of more intermediate level classes that are online, and there's some workforce development aspects to what they can do there. The majority of our classes are free or very low cost. And then back to the idea of computer basics, we do have we've been able to take our curriculum and translate it into Spanish, and we are able to offer it, not as often as we'd like, but we are able to provide this in Spanish language as well. So I would say anyone that's interested in what we have to offer, that is the first stop. Go to our Learn Tech page and see what classes are available. Like this AI series of workshops we're doing this summer, that's where people would go to sign up for that. If you need a computer basics class or ways to practice or update your skills, that's the first stop to go to.
So how big are your classes? Is it 10 students, 20 students? Is it more personalized?
Yeah, I would say our sweet spot is about 15. Our on-site computer basics classes, we may have a little over 20 in a class at one time, but a good smaller student to teacher ratio is great. You have a class that's too big, it's just people are going to get something out of it, of course, but there's a few people that could maybe use a little more direct attention or maybe just encouraged to ask questions. So you get a class that's too big, you kind of lose some of that. Same thing, I mean, it's great if you have a class of 5 people, that's a lot of direct help, but we're also not reaching as many people, and unfortunately the work that we do does have a cost to it. So we want to try to maximize our impact while still providing quality programming and education. But I'd say about 15 people is a good average number.
So you being a teacher, you having to teach these classes, 15 to 20 people, what considerations do you set for yourself emotionally, mentally, when it comes to teaching students or teaching an audience of vastly different backgrounds? I see that on your website, your audience can be, or you have taught, not directly you, but your teachers have taught, immigrants, refugees, people in and out of the justice system, of course, K through 12, people with disabilities. So, I mean, I would assume that, each type of audience requires something different out of you. So what do you do in particular to, make sure that your teaching is effective? Make sure that your message resonates with your audience, knowing that some people might take longer to comprehend what you're saying than others. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not just me, right? We have a great team here. We couldn't do any of this without the great staff that we have, and just in my time alone, we've seen our staff increased quite a bit, and we have some really great educators and programmatic leaders, as well as the people on the more technical and refurbishing side, right? But so, that being said, like a lot of us will teach these classes. There are probably 4 or 5 of us that will do some of the direct instruction here on site or out, as well as training others to teach the material. So, in terms of like how to prepare for a class like that, a lot of it's experience, but we also want to train people on that too, is, the patience and empathy part of it. We really, that's kind of the biggest barrier to someone new to this work is trying to remind people, not everyone, when you say, hey, go to this website and click here, that's about 5 or 6 steps for someone who's not very comfortable with it, right? So, preparing people mentally for that and that patience, and of course, like we'll have a class that's like 2 hours, and there's a lot of material we want to get through, but questions and engagement in the class, or just different people's different skill levels may require that we back off some of that, or have to determine how much time we spend on certain topics. So. That's where that patience and flexibility comes in. Not everyone's naturally gifted at public speaking or like teaching, so that's a skill that you need to learn and cultivate. And I have to remind myself, okay, let's get into teaching mode, right? But it's pretty, once I get in there. Affability, I think, is important, like humor and friendliness, having a smile, right? People are nervous. They come to these classes, and when I say people, I'm talking about people with the little to no skills that really need these programs. They're nervous, and if you can smile at them, if you can encourage them, if they make a mistake, you're like, that's okay, you got halfway there, that's good, that's the kind of stuff that's really going to encourage people and get them excited about it, and break down some of those barriers, and I think to a certain extent, to a big extent, is shared experience. We're able to teach these classes here on site, but one of the things I'm really proud of about our train the trainer model is the instructors that we hire, we call them community technology instructors. And what that really means is we are looking for people that are part of their community, that are embedded in the community. They either live in the neighborhoods, or they work with the people that they're trying to serve, or they're just from that area. And having that, that trusted person, rather than some stranger from Durham coming to their town and teaching a class, is just going to lower some of those barriers to, asking questions and getting excited about it and having that confidence. I can't discount that enough, and that's a huge part of what we do. And then humor is helpful, right? It's probably not coming through today, but I am kind of a goofy guy, and I just find myself joking and making analogies and exaggerations just sort of naturally, and I crack people up sometimes, and I think that humor helps get some of these ideas across too, So it's confidence, but also not knowing, not going into this situation as like I'm the sole, holder of this information. I'm not the expert, but knowing that you don't know it all and being able to relay it to other people. Like, hey, it took me a while to learn this as well, so you guys are right on track. Don't stress about this. All it takes is practice, and you'll get better. Our main thing, I didn't talk about this earlier too, but the main thing that we're trying to measure, we do surveys, we gather data on people's computer skills both before and after a class. And we're not testing people, we're not asking them to prove like what their knowledge is. We're asking them to report on their confidence. And over the years that we've done this, for this computer basics program, we have over 85% of our, just across the board, train the trainer program as well as on-site, people will just walk out of more confident, and that's a measure of success for us. We don't need them to be, computer scientists or programmers, but if they just feel a little bit more confident than when they walked in, we're happy about that, and so are they.
Well, thank you, Lyle, for your answer. I do appreciate that. So my last and final question, I just want to make sure that I ask this because I want, a full circle of Kramden, and I want your honesty with this last one. What do you believe are the past, present, and future potential constraints that you see with Kramden? Everything that you said up until this point has been very insightful and very powerful as to how you are making a difference in not only Durham, but also in Winston-Salem. But there's always things that we're great at and things that we can be better at. So what do you believe Kramden can be better at?
Whew, that's a lot of opportunity there, I think. So I'll try to break it down with, the way you asked this in terms of like, what are some past challenges, what are we dealing with now, and what do we have to come around in the future? As far as the past is concerned, we got a lot more desktop computers, and those are easier to work on, but they're also heavy, and they require more labor, and they're harder to transport. So, that was an issue, as well as just the size of our organization. We could only do so much with the small staff that we had. When I think about a computer basics program that we do on site, it was exciting that we were able to provide a computer along with it when that first started happening. We were able to do that 2 or 3 times a year. Now we can do it about once a month. We are able to do it consistently. So, that was definitely a challenge in the past, is just having that support, having the staff, having that expertise. And I think just a general awareness of what we now talk about digital equity or digital inclusion. Formerly we called it the digital divide, but people weren't always aware that these skills gaps were there, right? So that was a challenge. Less so now, again, the pandemic kind of highlighted for the public at large that this is a necessity. People need to have devices, they need to have internet connectivity, they need to have a way to teleconference, and they need to know how to use this stuff. So, that is a good thing that we have now is people are aware of the issue. To a certain extent, I would say another current issue, and not just for Kramden, but the field in general, is just having the right skills to be able to teach this information effectively, or to pass on this knowledge effectively, and to do it the right way, as opposed to just in a reflexive way. Like, people need computers. Let's get some computers. Let's put them in their hands. Let's walk away. That is kind of helping, but it's not, providing that digital resiliency that we talked about. So I would say that's kind of a current problem. People can only do so much. We're fortunate that we've been doing this for a while, but, an organization's just now getting off the ground doing it. We wish them well, and we hope everyone is able to capitalize on the shared knowledge that's been accumulated during this process. But we know that can be difficult. So those are kind of some of the challenges currently. And as far as the future goes, it's just hard to say. AI is kind of a hot new topic, and it's already revolutionizing a lot of the ways that we do things, as well as how we consume information. Right? Talk about this idea of like truth and how to determine reality from fiction. AI is just part of a continuum of when people would Photoshop fake images and then share it as real. We just now have that in video form now. So I see that as a problem, but that's just the problem of today. We don't know what other technologies or challenges are going to come around them. And I think another part of this is, from a refurbishing standpoint, for us as an organization, things are getting smaller, they're getting miniaturized, they're getting more efficient, which also means harder to work on, so that's kind of a challenge that we may have to deal with. But another thing is just with more people having devices, right, the more energy needs to be created, right? So how sustainable is, our energy needs as we move forward? I don't know the answer to that.
Not Kramden as a whole.
Just for everyone. For everyone, right? Like we all are using our devices. We're always plugged in, and we're always streaming something, or listening to something, or working on something. There's always a screen or several screens in any given room we're in, and that all has an energy cost. So, how is that going to affect us, globally? That's sort of, the concerns of the future.
Well, I can say for one, just from this interview and me doing my own personal research on Kramden, seeing your success from 2003 up until now, and seeing your impact that you've been making in North Carolina, I'm sure that the constraints that you talked about in the future, it might seem big right now, but you said that your team is growing, so you have a lot more people, educated people who are devoted to the mission to figure that out, and I'm sure through the help of your teams and the other nonprofits that you work with, you guys will figure it out.
Yeah, it's a big field, and more people are becoming aware, and there are a lot of brilliant minds working on these problems.
There you
go. I think we probably are both in this share this, in that we're optimistic. I hope that we have the ability to surpass a lot of these problems. So I'm not too worried about it, but
it's in the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Elevator music playing in the back of your mind.
Right.
Well, thank you, Lyle, for the interview. Thank you for the conversation. Do you have any lasting comments that you would like to say to the camera before we end, or anything in general
No,
about yourself or Kramden?
I would just say, again, John, thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
If you folks have devices that you need to get rid of, try to dispose of them responsibly, and look around for organizations doing this kind of work in your area. And you can always reach out to us if you have any questions. We're always happy to advise or point people in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for educating me, our audience, my team on Kramden. This was definitely an experience. Like I said, I did not know the sheer impact that you guys were making, especially outside of your respective communities. So, and I'm sure it's only going to grow over time. So,
just in the years that I've been here, the growth that I've seen, it's been phenomenal.
I wish the best for you. I wish the best for your team. I wish the best for Kramden, and I truly hope that you are able to knock down all your milestones and all of your objectives going forward.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for the
you so much
opportunity.
for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah.